Chapter 1. Birth. Commander Trauma watched the small round object floating around in the containment tube. So this is what I looked like 5 years ago. He was amazed at how small the object was, and how rapidly it seemed to grow. In a few months, it would be as large as a normal 5-year-old human. It was amazing how the process of cloning worked. He handed the tube back to the Kaminoan, who stood in front of him, and she placed it back in the cylinder filled with several more other tubes. Trauma smiled, and took one last look at the tube. It read 295590. He would remember this number, and return here in a year or so to see how the clone was coming. A year and a half later. CT 295590, attention! Lieutenant Keeley shouted as he looked into the eyes of the seventh and final clone in the team that stood before him. Shinies, he thought to himself. Shiny was the term applied to a young clone, whose armor was metallic white from the lack of battle. It was also somewhat of an insult, implying that the clone had almost no training. Keeley pressed a button on his wrist armor, and he yelled, "Show me what you got!" The room instantly went black, except for the dim glow of the 7 young clones' DC-15A blaster rifle scopes. The young clones moved slowly, and the leader of the team, CT-295597, said, 5596, how many droids we got? The clone, a few feet to his left, pulled out a pair of night vision binoculars from his satchel, and he stared through them ahead. I see 2 supers up there on the ledge, but they haven't spotted us yet. He turned to the right and stared upwards. And at least 4 commandos up there. 2 have sniper rifles, and a third has a stationary Z6 modified rotary blaster cannon. The leader of the team said, All right, 5596, 5592, and 5595, you're with me. 5593, 5594, sniper positions. And I want you to get rid of that Z6. And 5590? He paused for a moment. I want you to stay back and give me cover fire. The clone sighed and looked slightly disappointed, but he nodded and crouched down on the ground, aiming his rifle up towards the super battle droids. His leader and the other 3 clones rushed forward, crouching behind small ledges and firing upon the commando droids to the right. 5590 aimed his rifle upwards towards the super battle droids, firing several rounds at it. The droid fell to the ground, and the other turned towards where the shots had come from, opening fire on 5590. The young clone ducked behind the ledge, yanking out his clip and shoving in another one. He whirled back around the corner, firing several rounds at the super battle droid, until it fell to the ground. He turned to see his leader had already lost 2 of his troops, who were lying on the ground, wounded from enemy fire and removed from battle. Now only his commander and 5596 remained. 5590 looked through the scope, aiming it towards the commando droids he had seen earlier. 2 of them had already been downed, one of which was a sniper, but several more had emerged from an opening in the wall. Now there were at least 10 of them on the ledge. He looked back towards his 2 brothers who had been told to get in sniper positions. One of them had already been taken out. The other had gone for cover for a reload. 5590 turned again, aiming his rifle towards the commando droids. He looked hard at the sniper, then pulled the trigger. BAM! Downed in 2 shots. He turned again, aiming for the one with the Z6 rotary blaster cannon. BAM! Downed in 1 shot. And the Z6 was knocked off its tripod with another 2 shots. He held his hand to his helmet and said, Commander, requesting permission to move closer so I can get a better shot. There was static, then an answer came. Negative. I can't lose my cover fire. If you get hit, I'll be shot down moments later. 5590 held his hand to his helmet again. With all due respect, sir, if I don't get a better shot, we'll both be taken down anyways. His leader replied, I said that's a negative. 5590 held his hand to his helmet a final time. I can't hear you over all the static and laser fire, sir. Moving in! Shouts were heard over his comlink, but he ignored them as he rushed forward, diving for cover behind another ledge, then peeking out to pick off 2 more of the commando droids. Now there were only 6 of them. 4 of the commando droids jumped down from the ledge, landing with perfect balance on the ground below. They rushed forward, using their E5 blasters to shoot down 5596. 5590 aimed, then held his breath as he pulled the trigger. BAM! 2 of the droids went down, a third was shot down by his leader. The 4th jumped into the air, putting its hand behind its back and attaching it to a vibroblade, unsheathing it. The commando droid captain lands on the ground again, slashing several times with its deadly blade. 5590 rushes forward, just missing getting shot down by the 2 remaining droids on the ledge. He jumps forward, kicking his feet forward and knocking the commando droid captain to the ground, pinning it to the floor with his foot and holding his rifle to its neck. He fires several fatal shots, blowing the head off the droid. He and his leader dive for cover and reload. I've only got one clip left. That's 100 shots and then I'm toast. His leader says, I'm on my last clip as well. Let's make those shots count. The two of them peek out from behind their cover, looking up towards the two remaining commando droids. His commander fires several rounds, downing the first one. The second jumps backwards, aiming its rifle down at them, and firing a shot that wounds 5597 in the arm. 5590 peeks out again, firing his last 10 shots at the droid, and misses. His leader pushes his own rifle towards the clone, saying, Make those shots count. 5590 grabs the rifle, aiming carefully. I've only got 15 rounds left. He dives out from behind the cover, firing 5 shots at the droid, knocking it off balance. He aims carefully once again, then finishes off the droid with another 5 shots, leaving 5 rounds left in the clip. That was too close for comfort. The lights turn back on, and the 4 downed clones walk out of the elevator, dusting off their armor, looking exhausted and humiliated. 5590 and his leader, as well as the third surviving clone who had stepped out now from behind the ledge, walked forward. Lieutenant Keeley looked at them, then said, You still need some work as a team, but you still managed to take down those droids. Your number of casualties was far too high, though. At best, you shouldn't lose a single trooper. You may lose only up to 2 to pass the test. You may try again in a week. Dismissed. The 7 clones walk down the hall to the mess hall, and they sit down at a table and begin to eat their meals. They talk amongst other clone teams, and compare their scores with each other, all of them trying to prove that they are the best. 5590 finishes his food quickly, and gets up to return to the small room that he shared with another 3 clones. When he got there, he was surprised to see that another clone was already there. The clone was clad in thick camouflage armor and an ARF helmet. He had a green and light gray pauldron over his shoulder, and a modified DC-15S blaster carbine with an extended clip and night vision scope attached to it. The clone turned to look at 5590 and removed his helmet, a smile on his face. He said, You wouldn't happen to be 295590, would you? The younger clone nodded and said, And you are... The clone smiled and said, Commander Trauma. I was here when you were, born. I vowed to return here in a year and meet you, and see how your training was coming. I was unable to return due to a large battle on Geonosis, and was stuck in a prison with my team and my general for almost 4 months. 5590 said, Well, I can assure you that my training is coming along very well. Lieutenant Keeley says I'm very good at sniping, and may become an ARC sniper specialist someday. Trauma said, Do you have a name yet? Many clones find their names based off their training and personality. 5590 said, No, I don't. Jedi Master Krell says that clones don't need names. Our lives are too short, and it's pointless to become attached by a name to other clones. Trauma frowns and then says, I don't doubt how wise Master Krell is, but I find names make it easier to become acquainted, and easier to make body counts when in battle. It's less likely to lose a man if you know each teammate and their name. I find you very good at sniping as well, and though you disobey orders from your leaders at some points, it shows quick thinking and planning. For this reason, I'd like to give you the nickname Ace. 5590 said, Thank you, Commander, but I think I'll stick to my number. I have to get back to my training now. Trauma looked disappointed, but nodded and replaced his helmet and left the room. He would never return to Camino, for 2 months later he would be slaughtered mercilessly by Savage Opress on the planet Deveron. 5590 walked down the hallway back to the training room, where he met up with 2 of his fellow troopers, 5593 and 5595. The 3 of them spent some more time training. Suddenly, there was a loud sound, and the room's lights went out. A few moments later, the dim red glow of the auxiliary lights came to life, and an alarm sounded. A voice shouted over the intercom, Droids have entered the base! Alert! Everyone to their stations! We're under attack!